Well, we've got quite a lot to discuss. First things I have to say is I apologise for this coming out so late. I am really sorry about that. Honestly, I was waiting to see what the announcements for Abu Dhabi would be, who would be in the cars, blah blah blah. That's why it's been so long in the waiting. So I'm so sorry this one's coming out late, but we are going to talk about it nonetheless. Quite a lot happened in this race. Most notably, George Russell took on his first race as a Mercedes driver and quite honestly put Valtteri Bottas under a hell of a lot of pressure. He came into the car and did really well, first bringing into question kind of how much of the last 7 years have been Lewis Hamilton's doing, how much of the last 7 years have been the car's doing. I think there's a point I really want to talk about here, which is, yes, of course, the car being the best car on the grid, the most dominant car on the grid, has led to Hamilton being able to capitalize in becoming a 7-time driver world champion. Yes, that is why Mercedes have been Constructors' World Champions consistently for the last 7 years. It is the car. It's the fact that Formula One is an engine-dominant series. It's an engine-dominant formula. Mercedes have the best engine. They, in fact, produce that engine, so therefore their car is most suited and equipped to run said engine. The whole package deal gives them the best package on the grid. That, I think, everyone always knew. Maybe if you're a bit more of a light or soft fan to the sport, maybe you didn't know that per se, so maybe last weekend was kind of a bit eye-opening for you in that way, in which case, sadly that's been the case for the last 7 or so years. So it's not super surprising to see this kind of be revealed through Russell performing extremely well in that car last weekend out. I think importantly we can't say that Hamilton is not a very good driver anymore because it was just the car doing the work. Absolutely not. I think if you put an okay driver in a brilliant car, of course they're going to win. Of course they're going to get pole position and fastest laps. Bottas! But at the same time, a really good driver in a really good car is going to be an unstoppable force. As in Lewis Hamilton. He is a very talented racing driver, much more so than the likes of Bottas. But I think Russell proved, and this is what one of the most amazing things about Russell's performance last weekend was, he proved he is he's as talented, or maybe on the same vein of talent as Hamilton, and putting him in the best car on the grid gave him the opportunity to show and display that. I did an Instagram post about this and I'm basically going to repeat that, so if you've seen that Instagram post you'll kind of know what I'm about to say, but I was absolutely gutted for Russell at the end of last weekend. He did not put a foot wrong throughout the entire race. The puncher was purely unlucky, no one can really call that. That's just racing, unfortunately, at the end of the day. But the shamble of a pit stop and having to pit him twice under that safety car, losing him the net lead of the race, which he pretty much held on to since the start of the race, that was down to the team. And I appreciate the safety car call was fast and they had to get the tyres out very quickly, otherwise they'd have missed the opportunity to pit them. But yeah, I don't really know. It was just, yeah, a lot of things went wrong for Mercedes. If anything could have gone wrong, it did definitely go wrong for them last weekend. But I was absolutely gutted. By all rights, he should have won that race. George Russell should have won that race. So it's absolutely gutting to see that he didn't win the race. However, the positives you have to pull away is he proved he can handle the pressure of that team. So any of this debate Mercedes are possibly having of he's too young to bring up is gone now. Absolutely gone. There's no excuses in 2022 because they have signed Bottas for another year, but maybe that can be broken. Discussion for Instagram buyers if you want to think about that. That's all very supposition, and I did actually discuss that on the Paper Mario live stream that happened on Wednesday, number 16 if anyone's interested. I'll put a link up here in case you want to go see that. I don't think there's any excuse for Russell not to be in that car 2022, and I think now if Mercedes don't promote him, I think that says a lot more about Hamilton's power in the team, and I think that's going to be quite obvious to see. I also think Russell's performance in the Sakhir Grand Prix has really hurt Hamilton's negotiation skills, because up until that point, it seemed like he and the car had this amazing connection that only he could really extract this insane performance out of, and it didn't matter who was in the car beside him, he could make the car do amazing things. Whereas Russell coming in and pretty much putting on a Hamilton-esque performance in that car has kind of showed Mercedes that maybe it's not just the one driver that can fill this role. Maybe Russell could be the one to lead them to world championships moving into the future. Maybe they don't necessarily need Hamilton as much as they maybe first thought. So I think Mercedes now are in a much stronger bargaining position going into the re-signing of Hamilton, which still hasn't happened. I mean, I think we're all fairly certain it's going to happen. Like I said in a few videos ago, he's going to want to do 7 and then leave. I don't think he'll leave before he gets to the 7. But yeah, I think Mercedes are in a much different bargaining position now than they were a fortnight ago, and I think that's going to hurt Hamilton more than anyway. Amazing performance by Perez, coming from an incident early on that put him to the back of the grid, had to pit early for tyres. The Racing Point strategists are very, very good. Whomever looked at that and went, right, he's on and off strategy, he's not going to be following everyone else's tyre strategy, we're going to make it work and hopefully put him in a position that if something happens at the end of the race, he can capitalise on. Granted, I think had Russell not have got the punch out, I do think he would have passed him, at least been very close, at least got second. Perez may have still won. And I'm not saying that Perez's drive wasn't spectacular. It really was very good. Very good drive from Perez. Just proving again and again and again why he should be on the grid in 2021. Interesting thing, Sky Sports F1 had an interview with Lawrence Stroll after the race where they spoke about the team, they spoke about the performance, yada yada yada. And I so desperately wanted somebody to ask the question, looking at the performance of your two drivers this year, why have you not re-signed Perez? Why is Perez the one that's moving out of the way for Vettel? Because from a racing standard, a racing position, the two drivers you want in the car next year are Sebastian Vettel and Sergio Perez, not Lance Stroll. Now, obviously, I know the answer to that question, but I just would have loved to see what Stroll would have come up with, Lawrence Stroll would have come up with, having been asked that question directly after one of his drivers, the one he's sacked for next year, just won a race. The Ocon and Stroll podium was good. Again, that was just good timing, optimizing. I think if Ricciardo and Sainz hadn't have pit in that last safety car, they too could have been in a position to capitalize on a podium. You also have to remember the Red Bull of Max Verstappen kind of took itself out, and the two Mercedes were completely out of contention. So luck is always an element of motorsport, and don't get me wrong, they were in the right place at the right time to capitalize, but at the same time, that was not a normal race. That's not, you don't have races like that every weekend is what I'm basically saying. So on a consistency basis, that doesn't have any longevity over a season of Formula One. You can't rely on one team having a bad race every race, because it doesn't happen. They're not 7-time world champions for nothing. So there is an element of that I always kind of drizzle a pinch of salt over when results like this come. But an amazing job from Perez and Ocon and Stroll to be there, to have the correct strategy, good from those teams, as well as to be on the right strategy to optimize and be in the right position, the right place at the right time. However, I do only think Stroll held on to that podium because in a straight line, it's a 2019 Mercedes. So the straight line speed of that Racing Point compared to the McLaren and the Renault was giving him enough to pull away that Sainz and Ricciardo or whatever was staying within DRS zone of him, but because he was pulling so far away on the straights, they couldn't use the DRS to close up enough to do the overtake. And that is how he held on to that position. So as I was saying, good race from both Sainz and Ricciardo as well. Missing out a little bit on optimizing potential there because of their pit stop strategy. Both Sainz and Ricciardo have kind of been like, I don't know why we pitted after that in that safety car, sorry, because their tyres were fine. Especially Ricciardo was very much like, I don't know why we pitted. I told the team the tyres were fine. So yeah, I think it would have been interesting to see the top 5 all not pit and see how their tyres all would have fared. Obviously, Sainz and Ricciardo wouldn't have had the tyres to attack Stroll towards the end of the race, but as I just said, it kind of became an irrelevant point anyway. Would have been a little bit interesting though to see how the top 5 would have panned out had they not all have pitted. 6th place for Albon, which was good. I think he had a bad qual. I don't think he made it through Q3 from memory, so a good recovery drive from him to get back up into the points and solidly into the top 10. I think for me, the moment I knew, and I probably said it in that video, but the moment I knew he'd lost the drive for next year was Turkey. Interestingly though, there's a lot of focus again now on Yuki Tsunoda from F2, the Honda young driver, coming up into AlphaTauri next season. None of this has been confirmed. Like I said, this is why the video is late. I was hoping that these things would be confirmed before I filmed this video. If Yuki Tsunoda comes up and takes the second AlphaTauri seat next to Pierre Gasly, and Albon gets dropped from Red Bull, which I think I'm 90% confident is going to happen, he could completely fall off the grid next year, which is an absolutely devastating blow. And in my opinion, not really fair, because it's Red Bull trying to replicate the Vettels and the Verstappen formula that keeps pushing these young drivers through into the senior team way too early, putting so much pressure on them, and then going, wait, why can't you perform? Why are you not acing this like your counterpart is? Why are you not as quick as Verstappen? And as well, the car is very much set up for Verstappen. So if these other drivers come in and don't have a driving style like Verstappen, they're going to struggle with this car. It's a little bit like what we see in Ferrari this year. The car is much more set up for Charles Leclerc than it is Sebastian Vettel. So Vettel has been struggling a lot more with this car than Leclerc has, because he has a better feel for it from the go, from the base setup, if you will, whereas Vettel is trying to manipulate the car to be more like what he wants it to be. So I do think it's a bit unfair of Red Bull, especially, like, at least for Gasly, there was the option to take him back down into AlphaTauri. I think the fact that they kind of robbed Albon of the option to go back down to AlphaTauri is unfair, because they're gonna, if they do drop him and then completely drop him off the grid, he doesn't have any chance to reprove, like Gasly has, that maybe it was the team, maybe it was the pressure, yada yada yada. It would be a real shame to see him fall off, but now Tsunoda has the super license points to be able to race in Formula 1 next year, and Honda have also agreed to provide a new engine, new spec engine for Red Bull next season, even though they're pulling out. Kind of makes me think that maybe a little deal was done there, and that Red Bull were like, you know what, if you give us a new engine for next year, we'll put Tsunoda in the car so long as he gets his license point. And you know, that's business. That is Formula 1, unfortunately, as I will go on about again, as I said. It's a money sport. It runs on money, nothing else. Well, at the base of it, it runs on money, unfortunately. Another good race from Kvyat, kind of a quiet one from him. Again, doing well, optimizing well. The AlphaTauris have been good this season. They've been good at qualifying, good at kind of optimizing and at least scoring decent points. Not high points, but at least consistently being in the points. Then we obviously have Russell and Bottas. I'd actually love to see Hamilton and Russell in the same car at the same time, because I think the thing that we're really missing is competition in Formula 1. And if things stay the same as they are, I'm pretty confident I'll sit here now and say Mercedes will win the Constructors in 2021 and Hamilton will win the Drivers' Championship. Because I'm pretty confident nothing will change. The regulations aren't changing, so the competitive order really isn't likely to change. And I just can't see Bottas suddenly coming out the gates, as he never has done. He always starts the season strong and then dwindles back. And Hamilton has been working with him now for 3 years. He knows how to keep him behind, mentally and on the track. So there won't be a fight, but I would like to see competition. I think that is what the sport is missing. And if there really was a really good fight between the two Mercedes every weekend, it wouldn't be brilliant because it would just be the Mercedes, but it would be more interesting and less predictable. And I think that's what the sport really does need. And then rounding off the top 10, Lando Norris. I think he had a couple of issues early in the race. I could be making that up. It was now a week ago. Again, I am sorry, but a good strong race for him to get some points. Obviously a great haul for Racing Point going into the final race. They're now third in the championship with a 10-point lead over McLaren, which is very important, obviously, for the financial payouts that they get for the Constructors title, or the Constructors Championship. We've still got a battle for second in the Drivers' Championship, because with Bottas really not scoring very much at all last race, and Verstappen not scoring anything because he went out early on in the first lap incident. Let's call it a racing incident. I thought that Perez should have maybe seen Leclerc. I thought the move that Leclerc went for was fine and justified. And obviously Verstappen just unfortunately tangled with nowhere to go at the end of that. So I don't know. I think it was deemed as NFA because no one seems to have got any penalties out of it. So, you know, racing is racing. Unfortunately, the first lap is always tight, especially in a circuit like the outer loop of Bahrain. It was a good race from Jack Aitken. He was doing well until obviously, unfortunately, he caught his front wing on that barrier, which in the end gave Russell the puncher that lost him the chance to fight for the win. So Pretty good showing from him though. He was doing fairly well with the car. I think he was outperforming Latifi from memory, but I could be making that up as well. Let's talk forwards now. Let's talk about this weekend, or the weekend we're in, and let's talk about some things that happened this week as well, because there's a couple of things we really should address. Firstly, Hamilton is back. He has now tested negative for COVID, so he's back in the car. Very likely to win this race because Bottas isn't really a fight for him, as we've seen all the way really through the season. So I think this weekend's going to be a bit pedestrian, especially with the long back straight. Any cars like the Racing Point, like the Mercedes with good top speed, are just going to disappear down the road, and they're going to be very difficult to overtake even with DRS. So I think Racing Point will take the 3rd place in the constructors. I think Bottas will take 2nd in the drivers, with Verstappen 3rd. Because Verstappen's got to outscore him by a bit, I think, now. Mick Schumacher did his first FP1 in the car yesterday. That was pretty good. He did well. A bit confusing that Haas gave Fittipaldi the 2021 configuration of the car and Schumacher the 2020 configuration. That was a bit confusing. I'd have thought they'd have done that the other way around. But irrelevant. He got out in the car, did some good stuff. We had a lot of young drivers on the walls. I think really in preparation for the weekend coming, that's kind of it. Like I said, I don't expect it to be the most exciting race in the world, and I definitely expect Mercedes to look out the front row for qualifying, which will have happened by the time you've seen this, so by the time this was uploaded. So well done to Hamilton and Bottas for looking out the front row, I guess, and let's hope Verstappen can do something cool tomorrow to make it a little bit more exciting than we all expect it to be. But the one thing I do just want to end on, obviously the incident that happened with Nikita Mazepin through the week. I don't agree. Of course I don't agree. Absolutely disgusting, the video. I have seen it and I'm not going to watch it again, and I'm certainly not going to link to it because it doesn't need any more exposure than it already has had. I don't care if that's what apparently the girl has come out and said it's fine, there was no problem, it's what she does. I don't care. I do not care if that's what she does. You do not film that and you do not put that online, especially if you're anyway, irrelevant of whether you're a public figure or not. You don't do that. Not in 2020. Not ever. It's disgusting, it's revolting, and it's horrible to promote that kind of behavior. Don't do it. That's not okay in any way, shape, or form. And I kind of feel like there should be something on these social media platforms that prevents things like that from being uploaded. I upload something to YouTube, and if it's got something copyrighted and it's claimed within 20 seconds of being uploaded, there has to be a way to block this content, to prevent this from happening, because it's not okay and certainly behavior that should not be promoted. However, I think the unfortunate thing is, and I have kept mentioning it in this video, is that Formula One runs on money. And because of the fact that Formula One runs on money and Nikita Mazepin has paid his way into Haas, I don't actually think any further action will come. Now, I feel like I really want people to not blame Haas for this, because from Haas's point of view, the only reason Mazepin got the drive in the first place for next year is because he brought a wadload of cash, which they're going to invest straight back into the car, to develop the car, to get further up the grid, to perform better in the constructors, to get more financial support so that they don't have to have paid drivers in their car. It's a horrible cycle that Formula One is in, but that unfortunately is the sport. That is the case. That's where we're at with this. If Haas have taken a big pay from him to get him in the car, there's a lot of financial strings that are attached to his contract. So if they get rid of that contract, all of that money goes away. They are financially not in a position, one, to lose that money, or two, financially in a position to actually break his contract, which means Haas will have to pay to have his contract broken. They'll have to pay to get him out of his contract, and they will lose the financial money he brings with him. This is not Haas's fault. I really want to underline that, because I feel like when I believe inevitably it will come out that he is still racing in 2021, I do believe the internet's going to go mad and go at Haas, and it's not Haas's fault. And that is the crying shame of it. This guy is going to get away with what he did with a slap on the wrist because he's rolling in money, and it's not okay and it's not fair, and there's nothing that can be done about it. And that's the crying shame. It just blows into the spotlight how much money means in Formula One. What is it? Is it a sport or is it a business? Does it have morals, or does it care only about money? It needs to make these decisions, but the problem is Haas can't make that decision. Formula One need to say, look, we're going to financially support you. Get rid of him. because we don't want him in the sport. We don't need that attached to us. So you get rid of him and we'll fill in the gaps. But of course they can't do that. Of course Formula One won't and can't do that, because from a business model, that's not good for Formula One. And it's not good for the sport in general to see that Formula One are paying out a team, bailing out a team to get rid of a driver. But actually, I take that back. That's brilliant. That's exactly what they should do. If Formula One was seen to be helping out a team that's struggling, because otherwise an absolute... someone who shouldn't be racing is in the car, Formula One will be seen as the heroes of that situation. You get them out and the team is still maybe not as financially worth as they could have been, but still has some support in the way that that's why this driver is going to end up staying. But anyway, I want to end this on a bit of a high note, not this. As a woman in motorsport, this is something obviously that's very, very close to me, very much something I really do want to shine a light on. And I feel like, you know, maybe not many people watch these track talk videos, but I feel like enough people do that I have a voice in the industry, in the area, and I can use it to kind of make my point heard, make my views heard, and views that I believe should be heard. I also really did want to underline that this isn't Haas's fault, and when inevitably he does still stay in that team, I don't want people going for Haas, because it's the situation, it's the financial situation that puts them exactly where they are, where they can't get rid of this. But let's look forward to Abu Dhabi, let's look forward to the final race of the season, and let's hope it's a good one, because we could really do with ending the season on a high. Please do let me know down in the coffee pot down below what you thought of the Sakhir Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts about the race. Let me know your thoughts about Russell. Let me know your thoughts about Mercedes, the Bottas, Hamilton, Russell contracts. Let me know all your thoughts about that, because I'm really interested about that. I always love discussing it with people, so please let me know down in the comment section below, and I will be sure to respond. Another thing quickly before I go. Tomorrow, the 13th of December at 4 p.m. GMT, I am going live for a charity live stream for Red Nose Day. We will be starting playing Zelda Breath of the Wild. It will be after the Grand Prix tomorrow. So you can come on to the stream, donate a little bit of money to a good cause, and have a good chat with me about the race just after it's happened. But for now, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's been an absolute blast. As always, if you enjoyed this video, go show that like button some good old-fashioned love. And if you want to support the channel, go hit subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss next time I upload a video. Stay awesome, and I will see you all in the next video! Something I will do.